back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at CBSI Hot Top 10 from 6 months ago. This week, we're looking back at the Hot Top 10 from December 28th, 2018. So our last look back into 2018. And I'm recording this on June 27th, 2019. So, and always that's just to let you guys know when this information was the most relevant. This week's list has a lot of covers on it, a few maybe actual keys, and a couple books that don't make a lot of sense to me. So we will go from there. First up at number 10 is Pug Davis, number 1. And this book I had never heard of before this. It is the first work of Rebecca Sugar, who is the creator behind Steven Universe. And basically those Steven Universe fans love her work and they love this book. Then back in December, it was selling for $300. Now, I have no idea. I couldn't find this for sale anywhere on eBay, and I looked on some other like auction sites and some other places. Couldn't find it. I couldn't find any sold listings. I couldn't find any for sale. Nothing. CBSI mentioned that it was extremely hard to find when they were talking about it. Apparently so, and it also appears that like the people that have it are keeping it. That these Steven Universe fans that have snatched up this book, they want it and they are happy to keep it because it does not appear to be turning over. So unfortunately, I feel like this might be the first time that I can't give you guys any real updated information on a book. My guess is it's not going down in price because at least as long as Steven Universe is a thing and or this creator, if she comes out with something else that becomes popular, it will probably continue to chug along as well. So that was number 10, Pug Davis, number 1. And number 9 is Die Kitty Die, Heaven and Hell, number 3, the parent variant or the Bewitched variant. And for those of you who are too young to remember Bewitched, which technically I am, but it was in syndication when I was a kid, so that's how I know what it is. This is a nice throwback cover to that show and the kind of the intro to that show. Then right out of the gate, it was a $10 book. Now this is a $30 to $40 book. And most of the listings are $40 to $50. This has continued to be a very popular cover. I don't think there's a lot of them out there. So this cover continues to kind of just chug along. There was only one 9.8 sale that I could find, and that was for $125 on a $30 to $40 book. That's probably about right. But I didn't see any 9.8s currently listed. I think there was a 9.6 currently listed. But that is Die Kitty Die, number 3 at number 9 on our list. And number 8 on our list is another book related to Into the Spider-Verse. This is Spectacular Spider-Man 313, which is really only related because it's the 1 in 10 animation variant, and then this is the one with Spider-Gwen on it. Now, the interesting thing was there were animation variants like this that had Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Spider-Man Noir, as well. They came out on other books. This is the only one that kind of took off. It was basically $25 right out of the gate. It has cooled, but for 1 in 10, still doing pretty well. It's still a $10 to $20 book. So it's not that 25, 30 kind of thing it was right off the bat, but still commanding $10 to $20 on a 1 in 10. That's not too bad. There have been only 2 9.8 sales that I could find. One went for $60 and one went for $130. So really just not enough of them out there to really establish any kind of value for a 9.8, that any kind of pattern that can tell you anything. But seems to be a fairly popular cover still, although not quite what it was when it first came out. At number 7 on our list, I was jumping ahead a little bit, I guess, is Fantastic Four number 49. That's where the 9 was coming from. And of course, this is the first full Galactus. Basically, the note CBSI had on this was with 48 starting to get out of reach for a lot of collectors. A lot of them had shifted focus from that to this book. And this all ties back to the fact that Disney has purchased at this point Fox. They have the rights to the X-Men and the Fantastic Four back. So everybody's been specking that Silver Surfer, Galactus, the Fantastic Four, all of them are coming to the MCU sooner rather than later. I think it's going to be a little bit yet before any of them actually show up. Everything I hear, but these books have taken off. Back then, basically, this book was setting records. A 9.0 set a record at 2,500. A 7.0 set a record at 1,000. Since then, 9.0s have continued to just kind of slowly gain, consistently going for that $2,750 to $3,000 range for 9.0. 7.0 is consistently going for just over between 1,000, 1,100, maybe 1,200 at the high end. 5.0s have actually jumped and they're now over 500. They're going for 5 to 550. And raws are typically kind of, even for pretty beat up copies, they're going for 200 plus. And then obviously nicer raw copies are going for significantly more than that. So yeah, this is a book, first full Galactus, the middle book of kind of those trilogies of 48, 49, and 50. Classic cover. This is a book that's just gonna keep going up. So hopefully, if you want this book, you got it at this point. But so that is Fantastic Four number 49. It was number 7 on the list. Number 6 on the list is another kind of first appearance. This is the Nova number 1, the first appearance of Richard Rider as Nova. And again, this has everything to do with the MCU spec, is why this book continues to increase. Back then, there were still people thinking that we might get a surprise appearance by Nova in Endgame, related to, the fact that Thanos destroyed Xandar or whatever, got the Power Stone. We didn't see any of that. There were still people thinking we might see Nova. But also there's a lot of people just thinking that we're going to see Nova here in the next phase. Back then, 9.8 hit an all-time high of 1,100, which was double from the year before. Currently, 9.8s are still going in that $1,000 to $1,500 range. They're a little all over the place. The last 7 have all been between 1,000 and 1,500. 2 of them have been over, one was right at 1,500, one was at 1,450. A couple were 1,250, 1,290, and then the others were all 1,000, 1,050, 1,100. So there was a big kind of spread in these 9.8s, but definitely a book that's continuing to have some momentum. Raw copies can still be snagged for $60 going up, so that's not too bad. And also, there's a pretty big fall off between those 9.8s and the 9.6, 9.4s. A 9.2 can be had for, just now has started to reach $200 and could be had for under $200 fairly easily. So depends on if you're a 9.8 guy, but yeah, there are some deals to be made if this is a book you want, if you're willing to step back from a 9.8 a little bit. That is Nova number 1. It was number 6 on our list. Now we're moving into the top 5. And number 5 is Annihilation Conquest Wrath number 1. And CBSI had no idea why this book hit the list. It is the first appearance of Zekdel as Wrath, but actually there's talk of a different character as Wrath maybe making an appearance in something, but there's been no real option news or anything. There was nothing they could find driving this. I tried to do a little research. I couldn't find anything driving this. But back then, this basically jumped from a $2 book to a $25 to $30 book. And still not sure why. And basically continued to go. It's come back a little bit. You can now get it 15 to 30 instead of that 25 to 30, meaning like there's sales all scattered through there. Probably 15 to 25 is probably more accurate. Although there was a $30 sale in there is why I had that. But typically it's more 15 to 25. 9.8, there's only been 3 sales that are on Go Collect, and they range from $80 to $250 over the last several months. So it's big range in this book. It is a cool cover, but still not sure what's driving the market on this one, but it has continued to go 6 months later. It's still going for those prices. With that, let's move on to number 4 on the list, and it is a repeat book from last week. It was our number 1 book last week. It is Spider-Woman Alpha number 1, the Lee 1 in 25 variant. This is their kind of the first appearance of this team of these 3 characters, and again, this has everything to do with there's supposedly a spin-off from Into the Spider-Verse coming for these 3 characters. Back then, 9.8 jumped from last week. We talked about it. 9.8 had hit 500. This week, 9.8 had hit 600. And Raws were going for 300. So we talked about before, this book has come back a little bit. Not much from last week, but significantly more from this week. 9.8 now going at 350 to 450 range. Although the listings, again, there was a listing for 750. Raws are still going for 125 to 150, so that's a considerable step back from a $300 for a Raw that we were seeing 6 months ago. It's basically cut in half. Although again, most of the listings are 180, 200, $300. So, but that is Spider-Woman Alpha number 1. It's one of those that is a cool cover. It is a fun book if you really want it. Just gonna have to be patient and look for the right deal because they're out there. It's just, yeah, people are still wanting more than really this book is going for. Number 3 on the list, we have Batman Damned. Number 1, the Batawang is back again. Back then, they were talking about that the book, after the initial push, had cooled back down to, number 1, it cooled back down. It was going for $40 or so. And then it jumped back up to $60 here in late December, and 60 plus for raw copies. Now, raw copies had kind of stayed about 60-ish for the most part since then. And then number 3 came out this week, and in the last couple of weeks in the lead up to number 3 coming out, this book has jumped back up again. Raw copies are going for $60 to $90 typically for both covers. And but the funny thing is, so a raw copy is $60 to $90. 9.8s are going for basically $90 to $100. 9.9s, again, although a 9.8 in this book is not a 9.8 in any other book. 9.9s are going for $100 to $150. So not a big spread there. Barely basically slabbing price between a raw one and a 9.9. 10s are going for $200 to $300. But, and occasionally 300 plus, but they are, $100 book with a 10 going for 300. I guess though really the 10 is a 9.8 for any other book. And these prices are pretty accurate for both covers. One of the weird things I did notice was that the B cover tends to sell for less than the A cover when it's raw, but it goes for more typically, slightly more typically when it's slabbed. Found that a little odd. I mean, not like a big difference, but just a slight twist in the numbers. So that was kind of an interesting thought. So that is Batman Damned number 1. Obviously, I think the current push is going on has a lot to do with the last book in the series finally coming out. It will be interesting to see where Batman Damned is in another 6 months to a year, because I have the feeling this book there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot slabbed at really high grades. I don't know that the slabs are going to drop any from where they're currently at. I do think raw copies are going to fall back down closer to $60 than the $80, $90 that they're pushing right now. maybe even 40 to 60, I think is probably a long-term range for this book. But so far, it continues to kind of defy my expectations a little bit with how well it's maintained. We will see. At number 2 on the list is Teen Titans, number 20, the Jimenez 1 in 25 variant. This is the first appearance of Crush, and this is the kind of character design variant that was the Hot variant for this first appearance. Neither the A and B cover really don't bring very much. This cover does. Back then, it was going for $50 to $60 raw, and that was 6 months after release, so it was going pretty strong. Since then, through basically even into May, this book had dropped back considerably. It was a $20 to $30 book. But here in the last couple of weeks, it has jumped back to a $40 to $50 book raw. And I think that has everything to do with the current storyline going on in Teen Titans. Basically, she has met Lobo her dad, Lobo, for the first time. I guess they had a big fight with her and the Titans against Lobo in the most recent issue. I think that has rejuvenated interest in this book. So it is back now over the last couple of weeks up to a $40 to $50 book. So now would probably be, again, a time to maybe be patient on this book till this storyline kind of ends, if you haven't ever gotten it, but wanting this first appearance of Crush. 9.8s haven't really shown that same kind of pattern. They've been going fairly consistently over the whole time, 150 to 225-ish for this book. So it had fallen back raw, but the 9.8s have continued to kind of stay in the same general ballpark for the most part. Finally, at number 1 on the list, we have The Batman Who Laughs, number 1, the Warnlow variants. And they are, of course, a homage to this cover, which is why that cover's in the background. And basically, there's 3 of them. They came out. There is a trade dress, the version that you're seeing here, and then a version that has her in her old costume that looks more like the Ross or this costume. Sorry, but basically these were selling initially, like the A and B covers were sold for $50, and right out of the gate here in December, the Virgin by itself was going for $60 plus. Now basically all 3 raw copies sell for between $50 and $100, and there's not a whole lot of difference between what they're going for raw. The trade dress, the Virgin, and the one with the old costume, all kind of, yeah, they all can be had. Actually, the cheapest sale I found in a raw copy was with the old costume. It was also the highest sale I found for a raw copy. So they're all kind of right in that same range of $50 to $100, maybe a little more occasionally. But for slab 9.8s, there is a difference in the pricing generally. For the trade dress, you're looking at $9 to $115 for a 9.8 of the trade dress. Of the Virgin, you're looking at $90 to $130, but for the classic costume, you're looking at $200 to $300 for a 9.8. So I do feel like maybe the raw copies of the trade and the Virgin, given what 9.8s are going for, are maybe a little overpriced. And the raw copy of the classic is probably about right for a $200 to $300 book, pushing $100 for a raw copy. That seems fairly reasonable. But this is just a cover people really liked. They liked the original. They like this Lau homage. So this book has continued to maintain value over the 6 months. So that is the list for this week. Like I said, we had a couple of important first appearances in Fantastic Four 49 and Nova number 1 and Teen Titans 20. Although it doesn't quite stack up to those other 2, but Crush may or may not become something. We'll see. And then we had several just covers in terms of The Batman Who Laughs, the Spectacular Spider-Man animation, the Die Kitty Die, I guess the Annihilation Conquest. I don't know what's going on with that book. So that is the list for this week. I want to thank you guys for watching as always, and we will catch you next time.